Are you dating a dismissive avoidant attachment style and wondering how you can take your relationship to the next level and what that actually entails? And are you also wondering if that's something that they want to be involved in? Well, in this video, we are going to go through and talk about some really important components, beginning with why this can be difficult for dismissive avoidance, what those deep underlying root fears really are, because guess what? They're not actually about you, and we're going to go into how to have a difficult conversation about this in a way that doesn't feel demanding or like an ultimatum, and that it's unlikely to put stress on the relationship so that you can have a really beneficial outcome. So, first and foremost, there's a few things that I think you really need to know. Number one, dismissive avoidant attachment styles harbor deep rooted fears about relationships, and this causes them to sometimes fear commitment. Now, this isn't the case in particular for, all other attachment styles, but this tends to be the most prominent amongst dismissive avoidance. Of course, the same thing can absolutely happen for fearful avoidant attachment styles. But basically, what's happening is because dismissive avoidants have a few deep rooted ideas about relationships not working out long term, because dismissive avoidants actually struggle to communicate their feelings and needs to their partner as well, it's very easy for them to end up in situations where they actually feel trapped by a relationship. And it's less about them actually being trapped in the relationship and more about them not being able to communicate what they need from a relationship. But because they don't know how to do that, they easily get stuck in states of learned helplessness in their relationships to other people. And because of that learned helplessness and because of how disempowering it can feel, sometimes they will just opt to avoid relationships altogether or avoid anything too serious. Another big reason dismissive avoidance can fear longer term commitments is they get afraid that they will end up with the wrong person and not be able to leave. Believe it or not, dismissive avoidant attachment styles actually have a really hard time leaving relationships. They tend to have these big underlying fears that if they leave, they're going to really hurt somebody. They tend to not know how to address that conversation or how to have it. And again, they can kind of get stuck in this freeze mode or space of learned helplessness around this discussion. And they get afraid that if they are leaving, what if they made the wrong decision by leaving? And so they can be quite trapped in indecisiveness. And at a deeper level, dismissive avoidants also don't trust themselves to properly know whether or not somebody's the right fit or what the right fit even looks like long term in a relationship dynamic. And they become afraid of investing too much, really needing to rely on somebody, and then that person not being able to pull through. So these are the big major ideas that dismissive avoidant attachment styles tend to fear at a subconscious level. Where do you think these things come from? Well, of course, past relationship pain points, particularly as their attachment style was developing in childhood and in their upbringing. And so, because they tend to have experiences where they don't know how to rely on other people, don't know how to communicate their needs and get them met by their caregivers, because they often didn't get their needs met in the way that they deeply yearn for. Basically, they are carrying all these subconscious ideas because of these painful and unresolved past experiences that then get projected out onto their future relationships. And as a result of that, they can get very distressed. So, this is why it's really difficult. Now, what do you need to be able to do in order to move through this if you are the DA or if you're the loved one of a dismissive avoidant? Well, if you are a dismissive avoidant specifically, one of the biggest questions you can ask yourself all the time, and I would ask dismissive avoidant attachment styles all the time when I was working in my practice with them, is I would say, is this a solvable problem? Because if the answer is yes, it means that you can do something quite simply about it. And it helps propel a dismissive avoidant out of this space of learned helplessness when they realize there are action steps that they can take. As an example, if you are a dismissive avoidant and you are feeling like you are not getting your needs met for enough time and space just to yourself in a relationship dynamic, does that mean you should leave the relationship? Well, chances are you don't have enough information yet. The vast majority of times when dismissive avoidants kindly and gently express their needs to their partner, that person is going to show up quite well. So if a dismissal avoidant says to their partner on a Friday, hey, I really just need some time alone today. I'm going to cancel our plans, but let's do something tomorrow night together. And I'll try to be really present then. Their partner is going to say, Okay, thank you for sharing that with me, right? And because the dismissive wouldn't express their needs to their partner, it became a solvable problem. Now, of course, there is a chance that you're in an incompatible relationship where somebody will never meet your needs, even if you express them. But that is the vast minority of the time when we are in relationship dynamics. Where we think, and this is for all insecure attachment styles, where we tend to think it's the vast majority of the time is actually because the majority of the time we're not communicating properly in our relationships. And when we do, we will often be very pleasantly surprised. So, as a dismissive avoidant, you want to get into the habit of communicating your needs to your partner. This is how you're going to get out of learned helplessness. This is going to be how all of these dynamics that you're afraid are causing havoc in the relationship, or all these things you're afraid of because of your painful past experiences, you realize, well, my past doesn't have to be my present and future in my relationships because I have a voice this time, because I know how to communicate this time around, because I'm practicing communicating and treating relationships differently. I'm no longer a child who couldn't get their needs met. I'm an adult now. I have a lot more control over my life and my experiences. And empowering communication within yourself as a dismissive avoidant is tremendously beneficial because you will find yourself needing to pull away less from people around you when you get your needs met within your relationship dynamics instead. So that's a really important first point. Second point is if you are the loved one of a dismissive avoidant, how do you have a conversation about transitioning the relationship from something that's non committed into something more committed? Well, you don't present it as an ultimatum and you don't present it from a space of stress. You present it from a space of you stating your needs and you being anchored in the relationship to yourself. What this looks like is saying something like, hey, I really am enjoying our time together. And I'm also at a place in my life where I'm looking for a commitment. And while I don't have to have that commitment in this exact moment, I just need to know that we're on the same page and you're open to moving in that direction as well, so that I can be mindful of how I'm spending my time. And if you say that, you putting your needs out there and you communicating where you're coming from, what you're looking for, what's meaningful and valuable to you in a relationship is going to be something that allows somebody to not feel pressured, but also allows them to understand what you're looking for and take you into consideration. Now, if somebody is not going to show up in a romantic relationship long term, they're not going to show up in a healthy way in this conversation. But what I often see the vast majority of the time is when dismissive avoidants are with somebody who's compatible for them, they won't answer in the moment. They will often go take some time out for themselves. They will go think about it, consider it. And generally, they will come back to the relationship dynamic ready to immerse themselves if they feel like the person is a compatible fit. And so they will make that commitment when there's especially when there's an absence of pressure. And it's not about, I need this from you right now, because dismissive avoidance can often feel afraid of that sort of ultimatum type of dialogue. But instead, when there's a, hey, this is what I'm looking for my life, I need to know that we're moving in that direction and we're on the same page. And this is where dismissive avoidance generally make a commitment from. Now, I want to be really clear about something. This doesn't guarantee that every DA is going to commit to a relationship. It guarantees that you will get the information you need about whether or not this person's going to show up and whether or not this person's ready to grow and to sort of move the needle in this relationship dynamic, which is information you have to gain access to if that's something you're looking for. So it's beneficial for both parties. The dismissive avoidant has to consider and really take a think about whether or not they feel this person is the right fit for them. And the person dating the dismissive avoidant gets the information so they know whether or not they should continue pursuing this dynamic long term. Now, I know these conversations can be tough. And if you are somebody who struggles with conversations with a dismissive avoidant, I actually have a course you can check out completely for free for 7 days. And we have about 60 different scenarios based on your attachment style for tough conversations. And this course is full of a whole bunch of different scripts for how to address these hard scenarios. One example is if you see a dismissive avoidant stonewalling, how can you communicate about it? If you see a dismissive avoidant pulling away, how can you communicate about it? If you see that you're in a position where somebody's not texting you back enough, How can you communicate to the dismissive avoidant about it? We have them for all different attachment styles. How to communicate to a fearful avoidant when they're being hot and cold, when they're being inconsistent, when they're expressing emotional volatility in relationships sometimes. How to communicate to an anxious, preoccupied attachment style if you need them to be more mindful about your boundaries or you need a little bit of time or space from them. So there's a whole bunch of different scenarios that are most common to each relationship according to attachment styles and a whole list of communication scripts that you can dig into and you can apply to improve the quality of connection in your relationships. And again, you can actually check those all out, print them off, everything for free for 7 days using the link below for a limited time. Anyways, that is it for today. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you're enjoying this channel. If you are, please consider liking, sharing, subscribing, hitting the thumbs up button. I would really appreciate it. And I can't wait to see you in future videos.